Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every now and then we hear about these kinds of stories where somebody's in a position of trust in an organization that has some money to be handled and they mishandle the money. And these stories pop up over and over and over again. People need to learn about this. But also, and this is important, is that if somebody is handling the money for an organization, somebody needs to be overseeing that. But unfortunately, there are people out there who get into positions of trust, especially at places like churches and charities. And people go, well, that's a nice person. They're helping the church out. They're helping the charity out by doing our bookkeeping. And next thing you know, their money's gone. So that's a problem. Bill sent me the note here from Fox News. Indiana church employee sentenced after stealing $574,000. And the headline is for gambling and vacations fueled by pure greed. The woman at the center of this is 72 years old, and her husband used the money for casinos and trips to Florida. And they've been doing this for about 13 years, they think. So Elizabeth Pritchett wrote the story. 72-year-old woman from Indiana will spend 2 years in federal prison after transferring nearly $574,000 from a church and its associated school to her personal accounts for gambling and month-long vacations. Gambling and month-long vacations. Now, some people are going to complain and say, Steve, 2 years is awfully short. It should be longer than that. And I would tend to agree with you. But the only thing I'll say in favor of the 2-year sentence is it's in federal prison, which means that she's going to do 2 years. And she's 72 years old. Now, I'm not 72 yet. And it won't be for, I don't know how long. I could do the math. But as you get older, time becomes more precious. So I suspect that this is the equivalent of throwing a 36-year-old person in jail for 4 or 6 years. But that's just my thinking here. The Department of Justice announced this Monday that the woman of Indianapolis pleaded guilty to wire fraud after 13 years of handling the money as a business manager for the parish. TV station Fox 59 identified the parish as St. Matthew Catholic Church and School. Now, the woman was the sole staff member responsible for processing checks received from parishioners and conducting financial transactions on behalf of the church and school for over a decade. From 2008 to 2021, she illegally transferred at least $573,836.59. The DOJ said the actual monetary loss is likely to be much higher, as she admitted to church officials she began her scheme back in 2004, and they apparently didn't have records going back that far. So the theft was exposed in November of 21 when she was on leave from her position, and her temporary replacement noticed suspicious transfers from the parish's gaming account to an external bank account. So apparently they raised money through some sort of gaming. Further investigation into the transactions led to the discovery of over $289,000 moved into multiple accounts, including a phantom account in the church's name. So they think that this person may have set up another account in the name of the church, but that she was accessing. The woman was reportedly able to maintain the scheme for so long because she was making false entries into a database used by the parish to track payments. The DOJ said the woman and her husband used a significant amount of money for casino gambling and an annual month-long vacation to Florida. For more than 13 years, the defendant abused her position of trust to embezzle money from parishioners intended for a school and a church. That's the U.S. Attorney for Indiana's Southern District speaking. Her greed and desire for lavish vacations outweighed her interest in following the dictates of our criminal laws and the teachings of her church. Thou shalt not steal. Well, that's not good. You got U.S. attorneys quoting the Bible to you. The U.S. attorney adds that her sentence sends a clear message to those who are considering stealing, defrauding, and embezzling. We will find you. You will be prosecuted. You will be held accountable. FBI Indianapolis Special Agent in Charge Herbert Stapleton, and he said that the woman's scheme was fueled by pure greed, and she abused trust to line her own pockets. He also said that her deception ultimately landed her behind bars. despite the potential short-term benefits. And yeah, think about this. She got these vacations and so on, and probably spent money on other stuff, but we don't know. And then, of course, now she's spending 2 years in prison. And as the old saying goes, everyone now knows what she's been up to. So in 2022, the St. Matthew's Reverend in charge of this, there's a bunch of abbreviations here I don't recognize, but it has to do with the Catholic Church, for which I apologize. I'm not quite sure what all these mean. But parishioners were informed of the theft, and a letter was sent out which said, in part, upon discovery of the theft, we enacted new internal accounting controls to provide assurance that all funds are safeguarded. We carry fidelity insurance to cover fraud and theft losses, and we have received payment to cover the documented loss. It is with deep sadness to report that those serious events have occurred. So it sounds like insurance paid to cover this loss, which is good if they had that kind of insurance. In addition to her sentence, the woman will be on probation for 2 more years following her prison release. She must also pay the amount she was convicted of stealing in restitution. So somehow, when she gets out of prison, she's got to scrape up $574,000 and pay it back. I don't see that happening. But a lot of stories like this hit the news. And I can think of dozens of them that I've heard of. I've done 1 or 2 stories about them. And quite often, it's something like the Youth Hockey League organization is starting to get kind of popular. And so it turns out that keeping the books is too much work for whoever it is that started the league. And somebody comes along and goes, oh, I'm the mother, or I'm the father of somebody in the league, and I do this kind of work, and I'd be happy to take it over for you. So volunteers are great. Somebody steps in and starts doing it. But nobody's overseeing their work. And somewhere along the line, somebody goes, wait a second, this doesn't quite seem right, the amount of money we've got versus the amount of money we should have. And they start digging into it, and they discover, oh, money's disappearing. And I'm not saying that it happens every time somebody volunteers. I suspect it's a very, very small fraction of those times. But that's often the story I see. And it's youth groups, sporting groups, school groups. And you can't just think, oh, someone's volunteering. It's good they're volunteering. Their heart must be in the right place. And by the way, their heart could have been in the right place when they volunteered. It might just be that someone gets this job, they're volunteering, they're doing it, they go, wait a second, there's an awful lot of cash flowing through here, for instance. And no one's counted the cash but me. So no one knows how much cash there is but me. No one's going to miss this cash if it disappears. And so you got to have some kind of oversight, some kind of audit, some kind of, and I know people want to say, Steve, but that costs money. Yeah. And having $574,000 of your money stolen costs you too. So you got to have somebody who oversees and double checks that kind of stuff. And, when you see about a story that literally is unfolding at least 13 years, it could have been caught earlier. It could have been. And the sad part about this is that it's a church. And a lot of churches have a lot of good people in them who trust each other because they all say, well, we're all in this together. We're in this congregation, and we all have similar beliefs, and obviously a lot of what we think is the same. So if somebody in this group volunteers to do the heavy lifting for us, great, and obviously we can trust them. And it bothers some people who are told, no, you can't trust them just because they're a member of your congregation or just because they're the father or mother of one of the members of the youth group or the youth league or whatever it is you have. You unfortunately have to remember, and I'm not going to get into religion here, but you have to understand that while you might be looking forward to a non-earthly kingdom, right now you are still in the earthly kingdom. And what do we know about people in there? And so, is it possible that someone could volunteer to help a church and their heart's not in the right place? Absolutely. That's very possible. And so we've heard enough of these stories to know that if you run an organization and you've got a volunteer bookkeeper, or you've got a bookkeeper whose work is never double checked, you might want to double check it. You might want to double check it. And I'll tell you, I've actually had people come to me and say, Steve, I'm a member of this organization, and we just now discovered our bookkeeper is stealing from us. And I've actually walked somebody through that process of trying to get them prosecuted and then trying to get the money back. And prosecution sometimes can be difficult to get that going, but that doesn't get the money back. And so you want to stop this from happening before the money's gone, or if it's happening, get it to stop before the damage gets worse. So Bill, thanks for sending the story from Fox News. Elizabeth Pritchett wrote it. Indiana church employee sentenced after stealing $574,000 at least for gambling and vacations. And the officials say she was fueled by pure greed. And yes, she's going to prison now for 2 years. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Some beautiful paths can't be discovered without getting lost.